What is the definition of an endgame anything? The Holy Grail? Something expensive, limited, or is it something of tremendous emotional value? Perhaps something that finally brings an end to a long journey or pursuit. Maybe even something that you could actually say is perfect or very close to it. Some say the concept of endgame is but a myth. Then, what about in the case of a keyboard? What is an endgame keyboard? Perhaps it's this. Welcome back to the channel, guys. This is Scott K. Yes, I have a lot of keyboards, including pretty much everything from Owlabs. Believe it or not, many of these Owlabs boards I bought with my own money. Why, you ask? Because I believed maybe this one might be my endgame. But I realized that the concept of endgame is very fluid. I mean, it can mean so many different things to different people. You may say a keyboard from a reputable brand, great design, unique features, good feel and sound, that is endgame. But honestly, that's like 50% of all the keyboards offered now. They could fit that bill, regardless of price point. Not everything could be endgame, right? In my opinion, endgame keyboard is something that feels special. It can be flawed, but when you look at it, you type on it, or just like hold it in your hand, there is something about it that is like, in my opinion, your endgame board. By that accord, the Vento 80 from Owlabs. It is endgame level. Let's get started. When you first see the Vento 80, you're automatically going to think, wow, the Jelly Evolve ate a little too much and grew 2 inches sideways. Because the underlying foundation of the Vento 80 is actually that, the new Jelly Evolve. I mean, take a look at the side profile of the Vento 80. Not exactly 100% identical, but that floating look, the quick release mechanism, the distinct upper and lower case separation, even down to like the edge beveling, it's Jelly's big brother. You really just can't go around that. Well, that's not really a bad thing, right? I mean, the Jelly Evolve is a good keyboard. But for this latest iteration, Owlabs put something unique, some of the unique touches to the Vento 80 that's different from the Jelly Evolve. For example, take a look at this little accent. Rather than a more simple Jelly, or in this case it would be Vento, tab design, you have a LED powered badge with a red button next to it. Yes, that little button, it controls the lighting. The previous Jelly Evolve's like quick release mechanism, right? It didn't feel as premium. It was like a more flexible plastic tab. However, Owlab's done away with that, and they went with a more anodized aluminum button instead for this Vento. It's tensioned below by this interesting spring mechanism here, and uses a collection of hooks and tabs to make it all work together. What also is new is that Owlabs decided to borrow the magnetic badging concept from like more of its value-oriented brand, right? QK Quarter Keys brand, and drive it right into the Vento 80 as well. If you recall, the Jelly Evolve actually used a single weight that was both like inside and outside, right, of the case. However, the Vento is a little bit different. It has a dual weight system where the inner weight and the outer weight are completely different. For example, the version I have, it has a matte finish copper inner weight. You could also get this in brass. And it also has a polished PVD stainless exterior weight in like 2 different color schemes. The result of this is that the Vento is a thick boy. It's extremely heavy, which is good and also kind of bad in certain situations. I will cover that later, more detail. But honestly, as you handle this keyboard, you will never once believe that this wasn't a luxury tier keyboard. I mean, it also comes with a luxury price tag as well. The Vento 80 will start at $510 and go up from there with more options added. Plus, this keyboard is going to be a limited run purchasable only if you win the raffle to purchase it. So very similar to how they ran the Jelly Evolve. So I'll include the information in the descriptions below. Now, before we move on to the actual details of the Vento, right? Let's go to a quick word from our sponsor, PCBWay. PCBWay is an online service that helps you print PCBs, do 3D printing, or even CNC machining. If you're an aspiring keyboard designer or whatever else designer, you can take your design and simply upload it to get something made quick. Or, if you have the source code for a PCB that you already have and you need a replacement, you can also get that done as well. They can handle all types of PCBs from your simple single layer designs to multi-layer stacks. Beyond PCBs, if you want to try making your own case, PCBWay can machine that as well. Now, a very exciting new service that PCBWay offers, OEM. Instead of just making a single component, you can actually task PCBWay to be an OEM manufacturer and make the whole thing. They can do anything from PCBs to CNC cases to even assembly. And using global manufacturing, they can offer very competitive prices. Is there a keyboard on the horizon? Well, check out OEM at PCBWay. Now, as you have seen before, the Vento 80 uses Owlab's excellent spring mount mechanism. This mounting style creates a very nice and soft and comfortable typing experience, while helping to eliminate the ping in the case as well. In addition, you can see the quick and easy magnetic connection that I think they introduced in one of the QK series more recently. Honestly, this connection is a game changer. And together with the quick release mechanism for the actual case as well, this keyboard, it can be built up so quickly that it's pretty crazy, honestly. So the Vento 80 comes in two different types of PCBs. The one I have, it's like the more standard one, right? Non-flex cut 1.6mm PCB. There's a flexible one that comes in a thinner 1.2mm one with lots more cuts. You can also get one with the 6.25U or 7U spacebar configuration, and all the PCBs are VIA compatible. The board itself is very standard Owlab's black and uses KO hot swap. Okay, so venting time. Okay, so I keep running into issues with KO hot swaps. Like, you see how hot swaps work? Like, there's like this thing, right? These two spreaders, and as the switch goes in, the spreaders spread, and then it goes in the center. But for some weird reason, the latest KO hot swaps, instead of spreading, they collapse. And it's a huge headache. Come on, KO, do better. So, the Vento can be had with 5 different types of plates, and I have 2 of them right now, palm and FR4. The palm plate is solid, but it's flexible, so you don't really need the cuts. The FR4, on the other hand, comes with lots and lots of cuts, as you can see here. This is actually a similar design you can see in the Jelly, and it goes as far back as I believe like the Mr. Suit as well. Yes, foam. You got a bunch of them, but nowadays, Owlabs is no longer Foam Labs. You can use this to shape the sound of the keyboard, or you can do without it, which I will show you very shortly. Alright, so for the first build, I'm going to try a minimal foam build with the FR4 plate. I'll keep the case completely foamless, right? Nothing inside it, and it will only use the mid-plate foam. The reason why I'm using the mid-plate foam is that the FR4 plate I have here is pretty cut up. So without the support underneath, it's a pain to stick in the switches, especially with the kill swaps acting up. Speaking of switches, I went with a set of KBDFANS Hamster linears, which are a Tech-C long stem. I will explain why later. I also tried out their newest Owlstab design, so let me know what you think about them, right? They're a little bit different from before. Like I said before, the assembly is so quick and easy, it's like 5 seconds, honestly. One trick I learned though is that when you do the assembly process with the quick release, put everything in and actually pull out on the quick release buttons, and it actually helps to lock everything in once it's done. For keycaps, I decided to go with a set of GMK Blue Samurai Keycaps. I thought the gold legends on the Blue Samurais, it matched really well with the gold accenting on the Vento as well. There's actually a specific reason why I decided to go with these specific keycaps as well, which we will see later. Overall, the keyboard it's gorgeous. It's not too outlandish and crazy, right? Yet it has enough details and features to keep everyone satisfied. The floating design is very unique and just shows off like the design prowess and the ingenuity of Owlab's team. The little accent lighting is just enough, and you have easy access to it without like going into software or doing anything too crazy to change the colors, which makes it a headache in some of these boards out there. As you would expect from a keyboard mounted on springs, yes, the Vento 80 is a flexible and a comfortable keyboard to type on, so I don't think I really need to go too much into that. You've seen the spring in action before. Alright, now, let's go for a quick sound test, shall we? So remember what I said about the weight of the keyboard? This guy, the Vento 80, weighs 6.6 pounds. It also sounds like it weighs 6.6 pounds. So it's not a very lively, bright sounding keyboard overall. It's just too heavy to be like that. It definitely leans into the heavier, thockier, darker side of things. I know sound is purely subjective, but keep that in mind as you consider the Vento. This will be a little bit more evident as we get into the later section. Okay, so then, I know I said that you don't have to foam up the Vento, which you don't, but I know that many people like Owlab's boards for some of that signature Owlab sound. Maybe it's changed a little bit, but it's always been there. So this time, I'm going to stick everything into the Vento and build it up with the palm plate. The disassembly and assembly, man, that was so easy, so I really appreciated that about this keyboard. So how does that sound now? So you definitely get a taste of that Owlab signature sound, right? That marbliness. Long time ago, foam was typically seen as a crutch when a keyboard sounded bad and needed fixing. Nowadays, it's mostly there to shape the sound to the user's preference. So I think for the Vento 80 as well, that's pretty much the case here. Okay, the mystery. Why did I use the Texi long stem switches and why the GMK Blue Samurai? Well, because I wanted to make it as close in comparison to this guy as possible, the legendary Mr. Suit. I know they're different, but I couldn't resist given that they're both TKLs from the same company, and I still feel that the Mr. Suit is probably one of the best all-around keyboards created in the recent age of keyboards, right, in the last few years. It's a beautiful board with a more understated design. It's very conservative, classy, keeping things a little bit more on the classic end. This Mr. Suit has the exact same palm plate with all the foams in it, the Texi long stem switches, and yes, the rival, the GMK Red Samurai Keycaps. So let's take it for a quick comparison, shall we? I know that people say PE foam makes everything sound exactly the same. Well, it standardizes things in certain ways, but it doesn't entirely make things sound the same. The Vento is a heavy, weighty, thockier sounding keyboard. It has a darker sound to it, while the Mr. Suit is brighter, more lively one. Kind of like the yin and yang here. But if you do ask me to choose, right, I had to choose one, honestly, I would still take the Mr. Suit. It's just my preference, but I tend to like higher pitched, clackier sounding keyboards. I don't know why, but that's just me. They're just a little bit more pleasing to my ears. So, you just saw a bunch of endgame level boards on this episode. Do you think the Vento has the right to sit right up there along with them? Well, ancient astronaut theorists say yes. Remember what I said about the endgame keyboards? There are different things that matter to different people. But when you hold an endgame keyboard, it needs to invoke that, this is special kind of feeling. And definitely, the Vento has that. While I prefer the sound profile of the older brother, the older brother, Mr. Suit, the Vento has that flair and the progressiveness and the innovation to help it separate itself from that. If the Mr. Suit is the more refined Pierce Brosnan James Bond, the Vento in my opinion is the Daniel Craig James Bond. A bit more showy, a little bit more blunt force, right? A little bit more brawny. At the end of the day, they're both James Bond though. So, I hope you enjoyed and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks.